is that these are the people that are trying the hardest to put the mask back on. And I guess, John, just like from your perspective, I know coming out of, like your experience in Russia in the 90s, like what does it look like in a society where like there is no mask anymore?
Well, yeah, that's a really good question. In Russia, there's no mask, but that can be dangerous too, because there are times when you first go to Russia, or when I first go to Russia, not to pretend this is a general conclusion, when I first went to Russia, the clear-headedness of Russians really impressed and surprised me. But it's hard when you have that level of clear-headedness not to give up,
Right.
because the world seems pretty hopeless. And I came home with a sort of nagging sympathy with the American SpongeBob SquarePants attitude, because in theory, at least, it means you don't give up. But then this, whatever SpongeBobness there is in America, it doesn't seem to include indignation about this stuff either. I was wondering if it would, if you could somehow expose the fact that he isn't even a real billionaire, because I have to say, my people have a deep respect for real billionaires. And if you could say he's just a cutout for people who really are billionaires and need someone to take the heat for them, that I think might make more of a difference than people might think.
More so than,
He's a pig.
Dozens of like rape allegations made against him.
More so than he buys 13-year-old Serb girls from starving parents.
Backed myself into a corner with this opening line of inquiry and topic. But I mean, again, just like I don't quite know where this goes. It's hard to imagine there being some sort of like huge revelation where like everything comes tumbling down. I think we're only going to still be getting sort of keyhole view of what's going on. But like the outlines of what is now public record about who this guy is, what he did, and his associations with, like I said, the leaders of the Democratic and Republican parties, including the president. It should be enough. I mean, I don't know. Like,
it's very bipartisan. That seems clear.
Yeah,
that's supposed to be a good thing.
Yeah. Who says the two parties can't work together anymore?
Yeah, and it's yet another nail number 2,753,000,000 in the coffin of it's just Trump. And we had a nice functioning system here until the evil Trump.
Or the idea that Trump is being manipulated, by the Russians because they have all this compromat on him. Well, if they got it on him, they got it on literally everybody else in the American ruling class. So, I don't know. That's take that as cold comfort.
Speaking of compromat, there might I maybe we want to cut this, but I'm hearing that there might be a Mossad connection with Epstein.
Well, we know there was a Mossad connection with Harvey Weinstein.
Well, yes, because he hired but that was like this weird, Black Cube.
The Black Cube, ex-Mossad, like private intelligence agency.
Yeah, but it would be in the interest of like state actors to be involved in something like this for their own purposes.
Oh, in terms of the blackmail stuff?
Yeah, that part at least.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, yeah, American public opinion on, Israel is at the lowest it's ever been. So you think the planners and, people in charge of the Israeli intelligence and military apparatus would want to, pull any cards that they have to, stay in the good graces of the United States government?
Yeah.
I mean, again, they probably wouldn't have to work that hard because there's a big difference in public opinion and, the people.
Right. Well, that's the thing. Public opinion is the real issue here. Is that even a thing anymore? Like
I don't think it is with Trump, especially with compromat, because one of the whole post-2016 Hillary demographic meltdown was frightening in its stupidity. And one of the ways in which it was frightening is, why are you trying compromat on Trump? His people don't want him to be a good person. They don't think he's a good person. He is their revenge.
Yeah.
He is their golem. They want him to embarrass the people who were maintaining this facade of decency on a system they knew was not decent. So to the extent that compromat is going to work on anybody, it's going to work on Bill a lot harder than it worked on Trump.
Because he has, like through the Clinton Foundation, that he is in his post-presidential life, coming out of a presidency, already tarnished by, sexual misdeeds, at least of what we know of the, non-illegal variety. yeah, that he's become like a global spokesman for, like he said, the flight he took to Africa with Kevin Spacey and Chris Tucker of all people. What's up? But
someone told me that that's not the same Chris Tucker. I don't know.
it's not the Rush Hour. And
It's not
Friday?
Rush Hour Chris Tucker.
Okay,
It's
but I
different
mean,
Rush
it's Kevin Spacey and
Kevin
Bill
Spacey
Clinton
for sure.
went to
And
Africa
Bill
together. Like what he said, that Jeffrey Epstein's a philanthropist, and he is someone who needs to be seen as a good person who is doing the right things at all times. So yeah, you're right. He'd be I mean, look, if Russian state actors have compromise on Trump, you can fucking rest assured they have it on Bill Clinton too.
Oh yeah.
So,
but I mean, we might be entering the age when it doesn't matter anymore. Things happen too fast, and now no one really trusts anything they hear if it doesn't align with their preconceived notions anyway, because you can always make some sort of argument that it's fake. So information no longer has a probative value. There's only pre-existing opinions that people then grab out of the stream of information, the stuff that supports it, and then they think that's true, and the stuff that doesn't is fake. Like if these videos came out, who's going to be able to prove to the satisfaction of an invested party that they're real, that they're not deep fakes or something? Who's going to do it?
Hard to say. I mean, I guess I remain fascinated by this case.
Oh God, I'm feeling like Nick Mullen right now.
Yeah, because it is like an Elroy novel. It's just like it's no longer fiction. We no longer have to live in a world where it's like fiction is what hints at the extreme evil and depravity of like the ruling class.
Well, this moment we're in, this moment that feels so vertiginous and alienating, it's because fiction has been outpaced and can't keep up. Like you can't keep up with what's happening. No representation can allegorically reflect like the hidden texture of reality, because there's no hidden texture of reality. There's just what is, and our collective incapacity to deal with it, to do anything about it.
And there's a sliding scale of morality among the fans of the various actors, in that the same people who, because I do troll comment section, I do want to know what the hidden norm thinks, and the hidden norm is insane and vindictive, just to give you the quick version. The hidden norm thinks it's fine that Trump has been stiffing contractors and groping everything that moves all his life. In fact, the hidden norm thinks that's great. But the hidden norm thinks the fact that Bernie Sanders might have made money off a book and might have bought a second vacation house is appalling. So that's part of the problem with the compromat. You're not dealing with some scale that works across the board. It's to your advantage to declare yourself an utter sleaze in the beginning.
Or like with the Sanders thing is a perfect example. Like the sliding scale, like if you get mad at Hillary raking in hundreds of thousands of dollars giving speeches to Goldman Sachs, like you're just a hater. But then it turns out, like according to his tax returns, Bernie made like $1 million off his book. I mean, well, then he's an awful hypocrite. He's evil. He's just as bad as Goldman Sachs. And I got to say, I'm self-interested party here. You can take this with a huge grain of salt. But, making money off a book you write is probably one of the least exploitative ways you can become rich. I don't know. I mean,
one of the hardest ways to make money.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to get too far here. We got the war nerd in the house, so I think we should talk war for a little bit. Let's talk about like the wide world of Warcraft.
The WOW, as we call it in the notes.
In the war nerd community. Yeah. I want to start with the two places that we've been talking about probably the most on this show, because they are the two countries most in the crosshairs of the U.S. state at the moment. And I want to go with like the quicker one first, which is Venezuela. And that one pretty much seems to have, if you were a hardcore Juan Guaido supporter and a real partisan of, regime change in Venezuela, very hard to see how you're happy at the moment, because this thing seems to have completely petered out, and the U.S. state has lost pretty much, from what I can tell, almost all momentum to get Maduro out of there. They tried to do it, and if they couldn't do it in 2 weeks through a few staged rallies or incidents of they're throwing Molotov cocktails at an aid convoy, or this ATV ran over a peaceful protester. if they couldn't do it like that, they're not going to do it otherwise.
And then Guaidó himself just fucked off to Colombia and bought a bunch of gold-plated Xboxes or something. Just said, fuck it. I'm going to get paid if I'm not going to become president.
Yeah, that seems to be one of many failures in the long history of American attempted coups. The trouble is when you talk about that to people in the U.S., it's like Maduro must be perfect if Guaido is an American plant. Well, no. Guaido is an American plant, and that doesn't make Maduro perfect, because when I was in Latin America, where I've spent the past year, I was speaking to a lot of leftists who are a little wary of Guaido. They have a great reverence for Sanchez, but they don't feel that Maduro is...
you mean Chavez?
For Chavez, but they don't feel that Guaido is a very worthy successor. But it goes without saying, and this is a part that's hard to translate when you come back to American discourse, that does not mean in any possible way that the U.S. should stomp in there with both its giant feet. It's already stomped in way too hard with sanctions, and sanctions are a very euphemistic word for something that comes to resemble artificial famine. Sanctions in their most extreme form resemble the artificial blockade and artificial famine that's killing Yemen right now. And sanctions have been perfected by the American political military machine so that from an original basis where they sort of hurt everybody equally, they now hurt the preferred targets preferentially, and they cause an incredible amount of pain. And when it comes to Venezuela or Iran, the U.S. options are limited to causing pain. There's nothing effective that can be done. You're not going to affect a regime change, much as a lot of people in the suburbs of D.C. would like that, not in either place. But what you can do is cause untold suffering to people, most of whom are not even grown up yet, and will grow up stunted literally, as the current generation in Yemen is literally stunted, and stunted emotionally and intellectually as well. So what the program we have in place now seems to be really kind of frightening, because no matter how long I do this job, I keep realizing how naive I am. There is no end game for this other than causing pain and causing chaos.
And that same pain and chaos is then, of course, used as a reason for a justification for the regime change. Like, they have no medicine, they're eating rats.
Right.
The conditions are so ungodly. Like, this is what Maduro has done to Venezuela.